This week on Rockstar Superhero.
Pendulum is on its way. The burning bridges oscillating. Jump before encroaching flame. Mercy me, I'm free.
I'm gonna brag for a second. I hear a lot of records and I work with a lot of different promotional companies where I get access to music that most of you will never hear. Some of it is awesome. Some of it is clearly not my thing, and yet some of it is pure in a way that just can't be explained. I've heard the new record by Starless and it falls squarely in the last category. Sure, there are hints of things we've heard in the past, but the band doesn't rest on the laurels of its clear influences. Instead, it twists and turns and pulls and evokes something so clearly powerful and spiritual that there's no way you can deny it. I will tell you that their new record is an absolute 100% must-buy for any discriminating listener who is seeking to not only have their mind blown, but to be taken to a new planet that doesn't care about you because it drops you off by yourself, where it mesmerizes you so you forget where you are. Ultimately, it destroys you while you sleep. The word special is an understatement. This is my curious conversation with the entire band, the Chicago-based Starless, on the Rockstar Superhero Podcast.
How does the music germinate in the minds of each member of the band? You know, where does your musical inspiration come from?
All over, obviously, right?
Yeah, I mean, we all listen to a lot of music. That's all over the map. As far as where, like, when a song becomes the start of a song, that's hard to pinpoint, because at some point it's a song, and then from there we can finish it. But I don't know. I mean, you know, it's probably easiest to say there's a riff. You know, sometimes there's a riff, sometimes there's a handful of chords or something.
Right.
Sometimes there's lyrics. I don't know. This record kind of came together. Song to song, kind of different origins, I would say.
Gotcha.
Like the song Pendulum, for instance.
Yeah.
Kind of began with a conversation that Alan and I had in the practice space. I don't remember how it began, but we were talking about the bridge.
The Colmenares Bridge.
Really?
Yeah. And how I don't remember. Was it an earthquake that caused
Yeah, I think so.
No, it was winds. So it was wind that caused it to oscillate.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just talking about that, and it just kind of blew my mind. I went home and watched some footage about it, and then just started writing. And I just I do lyrically, like, my resources come from two places. I either, and in this case, it was just kind of a brain dump of word salad writing, filled a page, put it aside, didn't think about it for a couple weeks or something like that, and then I had a riff, and it's funny because the riff that I had doesn't actually end up in the song, but it's funny. Yeah, the process for this record was quite a bit different. Alan and Quinn are they're newer to the band, and this record was their first opportunity to kind of have a say in what happens. And we try to be very democratic about how a song gets created from beginning to end. But yeah, I brought the riff in, with just sort of a, like maybe a verse based on that brain dump.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, from there, we just kind of distilled it and brought it to, I don't know. Fast forward about a year and many things were done. Yeah, I don't know. Alan, if you wanted to talk about like where you took it from there.
Yeah, I mean, like sort of jumping in and probably hitting this all over the map, but I think once a song is sort of in process with all of us in the room,
awesome.
I guess my take is that we leave and we think about it. I think one thing that's obvious about the music is that we think about it while we're not together. And when we come back, we've felt our way through how we might do it. And I think like Pendulum's a great example, because there was a moment where I had just been listening to the rehearsal tapes over and over again. I said, there's an arc to this, and we can extract that arc. And I think getting it to an arrangement, it's sort of like that moment where you go, oh, this is how this really feels, right?
Right.
So in particular, that song's a great example, because I think Quinn and I, as the rhythm section, and like I think that's where we sort of even tacitly create from, is like, what do those things feel like when we do them together? And that ends up helping Jon and the band, I think, arrange music, which is, I think, something of our roles in the band as the rhythm section. And again, the song's a great example, because I think once the arrangement hit, we started to arrange the rest of the songs on the record, I think, more efficiently, because we said, this is kind of what we feel like. Like, we're actually connecting this in a way that isn't intellectual. It's like, this feels right. And like, wow, we've done something with this material. We feel good. And then ever more stuff started to feel good. And then I think the record sort of started to take its shape. And I think that's just my feelings on that when we start with Pendulum as an example, and thinking about the process of writing it.
Yeah, I would say midpoint we had like, a string of parts that we tacked on, butt jointed, one after the other. And at some point, Alan came in and said, let's take the beginning of this song and reverse it and make it the end of the song. If you notice, the song starts as it ends, like a pendulum.
Yes, I did notice that. And I also noticed what I like about the last note is it ends without resolution.
Yes. That was my idea.
I was paying attention, Jesse. I love that song. What's really cool about that song too, and I don't know if this was a sort of a backdoor influence for all of you, and especially you, Jon, with writing lyrics. But if you don't know this about the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, it was designed sort of improperly, and it was designed with this idea, the man's hubris was like, it'll be fine. That was absolutely how it was put together, which when you think about the title of the album, right? It's right. This sort of dark journey. I love this because it puts it together for me, right? I know I'm sort of jamming around right now and riffing. My brain is sort of trying to process what you've said, but it is absolutely so true, because nobody cared. They just wanted to put a bridge across. They wanted to be paid a ton of money, and they didn't care how it worked out. And it obviously worked out poorly,
Spectacularly.
Gorgeously. It's still an amazing thing. Yeah, all due to wind. Just 35-mile-an-hour winds are fine. Drive slow.
There are a lot of threads of like you said, hubris and our diminishing faith in humanity as time goes on. So now, regarding the songwriting process, if I could just go a little deeper, is the band then, are you sort of, in a sense, Jon, the starting point, you and Jessie, and then it goes to the, sort of the same pattern every time of, I come up with an idea, maybe Jessie comes up with an idea, we toss those things together, right? And then Alan and Quinn
sort of process it and then bring it back, and then you guys rehearse it and try to figure out sort of the proper, the path through the song, so to speak? Is that kind of the jam?
Yeah, I mean, for this record, I think all of the ideas kind of started with a little something that I brought into the room. Oftentimes, leaving the room with a completely different thing. But yeah, it's got to start somewhere, and usually I'm the one that does that. That's not 100%, but
Gotcha.
For this record, I think it was.
Yeah, I'm curious. You guys said things come from so many different angles, and of course, we all have the traditional influences, something we grew up, something we listened to. But have you ever considered that what you do artistically would be something purposefully different than your influences? In other words, like you bring in some stylistic similarities, but then you forcefully create something that hasn't been done by those influencers or anyone else yet?
I've often, I often describe my, what I go for is not really what I want, but what I don't want.
That's awesome.
It's sometimes.
How does the band deal with that? If you're saying, hey, I don't want to do it this way, but I'm gonna sort of retweak an old method. How do you guys as a band overcome Jon's desire to fuck with the system, so to speak?
I think we invite it. I think that we like to rework stuff according to what not to do.
Yeah. I wouldn't say
we're very willing. We don't get all mad about it,
We're actually, we're a pretty agreeable group, which I think otherwise, obviously otherwise it wouldn't work. It's not that other dynamic. We're not fighting in the practice space. So we'll try everything. All ideas are welcome. And we just, let the tape, let the rehearsal tape kind of tell us what to, where to go from there.
I seem to recall us discussing ideas for a long time. We're like, what are we doing? Just fucking play it and see what it sounds like, Usually just execution is the way to suss it out.
Yeah. I like this idea too, because I love your music so much. And I'm just meeting you now, but for me as a listener, the last thing I want you guys to do is shooting star, right? Flame out, last 2 records and be done because you just can't stand each other. So I like the fact that you know how to write together. I like the fact that it seems to me, after listening to the first record and then listening to this one, that Alan and Quinn have brought the right kind of energy that has kept the sound cohesive, but actually advanced it.
Yeah, definitely.
That's
I'd
awesome,
say for styles, I don't come in with a riff or anything really, but keeping it cohesive, what I was thinking is, there was a different drummer before me and who, made a great record before this one. And his style was pretty different from what I would probably do naturally. Sure. So coming into this, I thought, what would I naturally do? And then what do I think he would have done in this situation? And then I try to, borrow from both sides to keep it sounding like Starless and not just what I would do on my own in my own thing,
Right.
To keep that sound cohesive. So then from one record to the next, didn't sound like something completely different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Do you and Alan then, did you guys have any performance anxiety about coming in and having to replace the previous members? If I may.
I don't think I did. I mean, it was in the beginning for me, it was just a matter of learning songs I didn't write. Alan and I didn't start at the exact same time. It was a little staggered. So
Alan actually played bass on the first record.
Okay.
He came in.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, and I think you wrote most of those parts too. We did most of the writing, like the songs.
Yeah. So it's interesting. This is an interesting format to hear, because we actually get to talk about these things. We don't talk about these things. They're just sort of in our knowledge as people, right?
Right.
I love hearing Quinn talk about his experience coming into the band, it refreshes that experience for me. And I remember conversations that we had. To your question about performance anxiety, like I think that when Quinn came in, my feeling as a rhythm section, or feel as part of a rhythm section, is like I was up in his face going like making these moves, right? Like to get him to feel like, because we brought in Quinn as a drummer. It's like I want a relationship with this drummer, and I want him to understand the music, right? And I understand it through how it feels, obviously. And so there was no anxiety after that joy of him coming back, responding to that. Like he came back and it's like that. Oh, well, this is very quickly after one. And also Quinn was so well rehearsed. He wanted it, he wanted it. He liked the music, obviously. And so the anxiety left, if there was any anxiety at those introductions. Like, I think one thing I would say about me coming in at a different time, I was replacing a bass player. And I was just excited because I like the music, and I didn't really think about who came before me. And maybe that's because I'm a sort of impressionistic player. I feel like, this is what I do. And if it doesn't work, then cheers. So,
this is who I am.
Well, or I'll be out, it will work, and that's fine. And it's no sweat, So the anxiety was more like, well, it's maybe similar to Quinn's. Like, will it work? Will my personality mesh with my playing mesh? And then I think the anxiety, if there was any in that moment, it left because we just got along, and we left maybe those first rehearsals going like, yeah, let's do this again, right? So there was obviously something that was happening, and then I think we felt excited about that.
Yeah.
So the anxiety left quickly.
That's really cool. I love that you're thinking about it from that perspective too, because so many bands, right, they wrongly sort of consider their audition process through the cool factor, the look factor, the influence factor, where they've come from factor. It's never about, let's make this a cohesive unit and figure out how to write together. And do we genuinely like the guy, right? And is he a great player? But it's always about, wow, what kind of shoes did he wear? You know what I mean? Because that literally happened in the scene here in Seattle. I mean, I don't know how long ago you moved away from here, Alan, but back in the 90s, if you didn't look grungy, you weren't playing. And in fact, this is probably a remnant of that, because, right? I was a part of the scene. You kind of had to have a certain look. There was a severe expectation. So I love what you're saying. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. We don't
go ahead.
Too much. Yeah, we don't put too much emphasis on personal,
the cool stuff.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, we all have really good taste in shoes too. So
Fortunately,
that's totally the title of the show. We have great taste. Thank you so much, Alan. You saved me from having to think of something cool later. Look, when I was reading up on you guys, of course I went to your Bandcamp page, and I'm gonna admit, okay, I'm 55 years old. Been around the business a long time. There are so many different terms to describe a band. And I feel like I have my pulse at least still partially, fairly strong in the business. Like I understand what's paying attention. I understand what's going on and I'm paying attention. But I had actually never heard the term slowcore before, which probably makes me sound like an idiot. But I'm curious, what led you to attaching that particular word to your band?
Tempo, I guess. It comes from a genre description of the band Low.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of, instead of saying sounds like low, we just said slowcore. And I don't think we obviously going back to the trying not to sound like something we want to sound like. Low is a pretty major influence on, especially the initial songwriting process. I really love the simplicity of their songs, especially just kind of the way the verses are and the melodies are kind of put together. Yeah. And I always have kind of an ear to that in the early on in the songwriting process, especially. So I don't know. Yeah, it comes from low. And as far as I know, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of other slowcore bands, but that's kind of, that's really just the one band from which the reference comes.
Yeah, I just like the core terminologies. There's so many cores: sad core, metal core, gent core, noise core,
Apple core.
I was listening to your previous works, obviously in preparation for this, and it's instantly clear it's all the same in the sense that it comes from this band called Starless, this band that I've discovered, if that makes sense. The first LP was called Deadly Light, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so to me, when I listen to that, obviously, it was produced in a different way. It was produced at a different time. There was a different drummer in it, but it had this dark but tonally resonant quality to it. There was a dark sort of songwriting process, but the album had this sort of almost like a brightness to it, like an actual sheen that I didn't necessarily notice on the new record. Where now your music seems to be moving into a slightly more sort of almost, I don't want to call it prog, but a progressive territory. The songs have, at least in my view, had a lot more movement. They changed shape more often. Does that way of thinking resonate with you and hopefully not piss you off? Because I don't know if I'm on the right track, but to me, how I read it was the band is moving in a slightly more aggressive direction.
Yeah, totally. That makes perfect sense. I think the first record, we were a lot, I don't know. I don't want to speak ill of a genre or whatever. But I think when we were making Deadly Light, when we were writing it, there was a lot of, there were a lot of doom bands, for lack of a better word, that we were listening to. And I think we were kind of trying to channel a lot more of that than we were in this new record.
Gotcha.
I think that's a lot of it, from my point of view. But I think, the most, like, I would say Quinn and Alan coming in probably were, the major factors in how we got to where we are in this new record.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, let's get to the new record now, because that's why you're here. The new record is called Hope Is Leaving You. And for me, the simplest thing I want to know is what does the album's title mean? What's the general direction of your intention?
It's a feeling, it's something that's kind of has been born out of the last couple of years.
It's also a lyric.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
the song's called Citizen.
Okay. Very cool. I've read the lyric sheet for the new record, but obviously I missed that, Jesse, so you can hit me. I was wondering if the album is actually about, obviously you've just told me, but some thoughts that came up were sort of momentary lapses in quality of life, right? Hopelessness, depression. But then it could also be, the influence of media or maybe even warfare, right? But it seems to me that it's really about a feeling of pointlessness regarding life in general, right? I mean, you have a song on there called, I think it's Helvetii. Is that how it's pronounced?
Helvetii.
Oh, Helvetii. Okay, my apologies. And I wrote down, it sounds as if death would be a sweet release.
Yeah, lyrically, I go there. I don't enjoy it, but it happens. And oftentimes it ends up sounding good on the song. So
yeah, it's killer. Was the album self-produced?
Yeah, for the most part. It's a team effort. Alan and I probably major drivers. Sanford, our engineer, would, break a tie here and there.
Smart, very smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want somebody who's going to pound it in a bit. Yeah. Go ahead.
I just want to weigh in, like something you said about hopelessness or you're describing a feeling. I think what's really rewarding for me, and maybe Quinn can weigh in on us too, is to be in the band and be able to be witness, so to speak, like to play and hear what Jon is writing and how it unfolds. As someone who we all sing, so we all support, we have 4-part harmony at times. And when I hear the lyrics, I can be at a distance before I become part of it. So I can listen to it as a listener. And it obviously excites me because I love the music, and obviously, and then I know I get to be a part of it too. So I know that's coming. So, but as a listener at some remove, I can have a perspective. It feels like I enjoy the perspective of translating it into meaning, even if it isn't the intended meaning. And to your point about whether the record is about hopelessness, I think it feels like perspectives on something that Jon talks about. And Jon, one of the things Jon contributed to our collaborative bio is the indifferent universe, right? It's not necessarily always about value. It's like an animal will kill something because it needs to survive, and to us that might be a horrific experience, but it's indifferent. It doesn't matter. We don't matter. None of this matters. And there's gonna be moments where we elicit sort of a response that's emotional,
nihilistic point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, all the isms, right? You look at my bookshelf. But that's what I mean. I feel like if that's something that the record communicates, it's like zooming farther and farther out. You're a tiny speck, and you just get farther away, and the world doesn't really care. And how do you take different perspectives? To your point, Helvetii is, and maybe Jon, as the author, it's about a very specific example historically that is a symbol in some ways for that in humanity, right? Like for that indifference of the world, and how the world might treat something. So it's like little stories or points of view, perspectives on this larger idea of like the universal sort of indifference. Like, yeah.
I get it. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jon.
Oh yeah, the Helvetii was a tribe in. I don't want to screw this up because that would. It was a tribe, essentially a tribe wiped out, like decimated, like 100% by the Romans, back when they were 100% decimating tribes.
Right. Yeah, they were 100% decimating a lot of people. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I actually didn't know that. I should have researched that more. So, but thank you for clearing that up. This all reminds me of a line from The Devil's Advocate where Al Pacino says, "God is an absentee landlord." You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good.
Because I've quoted that line for years because it does feel like that, and I don't want to get into religion or anything right now, but I grew up in a church family, and I attended church most of my life, and I feel that way all the time. Like, how is this possible that we don't care about simple things like, driving down the freeway and seeing just can and jar and it reminds me of the old Native American commercial with the weeping the weeping Indian chief, right? Because it's so offensive that nobody gives a shit, and almost nobody gives a shit because they're so busy going, can I get that 12-ounce latte? Oh, Dave died. Yeah, can I get a sip? Nobody cares. It's so easy to forget. When you wake up and one of your best friends died, and you wake up and the first thing you do is you go and have a nice morning, and then you're like, oh, that's right. Jon died. You're like, oh, that sucks. Yeah, I want the latte, right? We move on, but that ability to move on also kind of makes us suck.
Yes, I would say in a way. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it reminds me of the in what is it, Breakfast of Champions, or I don't know if that's the book. It's a Vonnegut, the Church of the.
I haven't read it. I'm awful at that.
The universally indifferent. I forget, but I'm gonna look it up right now.
That's okay. I'll keep this rolling. Well, when I was asking about the production thing, I'll ask this of you, Jesse. I'm always curious how the simplest things like song order are worked out. Obviously most bands put their best work at the top, but sometimes they like to hide. And I don't want to just say Pendulum is the best song, but they think it's the best, right? And I'm curious how you put your album together. Was it based on, we've got to hook them with this because we believe this is our best opener? Or was it just, rolling the dice? How do you guys put things together, and especially regarding how the songs lay out on the album, how they tell a story?
I think Pendulum was kind of a question mark for the first song. I think we were kind of worried about the intro, maybe turning people off, and because that's not really most of what we're doing.
Uh-huh.
And from my perspective, I really wanted to press vinyl, and so song order was side to side.
Right.
So how it ends on one side, and also the third song is kind of the relief. Like Forest is kind of like that breath out after hearing all the heavy stuff.
Yeah. I'll say this because, again, I've listened to the album a couple of times in a row now. And for me, what I love about Pendulum is it is an epic opener because it does something different, because it takes you, I get it, the terms have been used a lot, but it does take you on an audio journey. Mm-hmm. I mean, it has all the starkness. It has this moody darkness to it. It has colliding harmonies, which I love, which, excuse my reference, but there obviously is sort of an Alice in Chainsy sort of
we get that a lot.
But it's because of that minor third, right? It's because of that harmonic approach, right? The way you're singing as a band. And I don't care, because it's an excellent way to put the tray in front of your listeners, right? I think it's an evocative start to the record.
It is.
My 15-year-old, self with headphones and my Walkman with Dirt, I listen to that record over and over again, and I think it's just been there ever since.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. But then you work your way through the album, and I mean, so I'll just jump on it right now and say my favorite piece is Devils. I freaking love it. I love that it there's like audio tricks, right? Especially, I'm a headphone wearer, right? So I love that the song swirls around, and it's like a roller coaster, right? Another cheesy term to use for this, but it allows you to enjoy the moments as they move and shape, right? You dig deep into it, you have to hold on tight, but that moment when the chorus, those harmonies kick in, has to be one of the best things I've heard in years. It's just such a perfect sonic moment. And I don't know if you saw this as I made sort of my mini review online, but I wrote this as a 9.6 out of 10.
We were wondering about that 0.4.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, for me, it was mostly that I didn't want to be like the guy who's like, it's a 9 or a 9.5. I was like, it's a 9.6. It's almost perfect. And see, you didn't forget it, but it was the moment when I realized the album was created by imaginative songwriters and not just a band looking to win the battle of bands, right?
It's not a competition.
No. I mean, it's an art record. It's art, and I know that sounds me just puffing up and blowing this all out of proportion and exaggerating like a maniac, that I'm prone to do. But, as if you've ever listened to my show, right or wrong, I only have bands on that I like, and this is art, man. This is true art. No smoke, no nothing, just incredible. And that's all I wanted to say.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
So Devils is one of my favorites too, but it's really hard to perform live.
Yeah.
It's very challenging. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they all are kind of, but that one especially, we took it out of the set list.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
For
Well,
now.
if
I
you,
know. For
if you
now.
go on tour, if you go on tour,
Yeah.
if you play Seattle, you got to do it for me, man.
All right.
Are you guys, I mean, I know with the coronavirus, things have obviously been intensely challenging, but they've also colored your record too, right? I imagine some of this was written in the coronavirus, or was it all written prior?
Prior.
Really? The whole thing?
Yeah.
Wow, you
We
guys
were
are
about-
some dark people.
It doesn't. We don't need a pandemic for.
No.
So, okay.
You should hear what we're writing now.
well, that was what I was going to ask Alan. I mean, so Alan or Quinn. Well, yeah, give me a feel on what's happening with the band now. I get it; the new release is coming out, but where are you taking this? What's the next step for you guys?
Yeah, well, to jump back just a second. Yeah, we did. We started recording our first recording session basically July 2019 for this album. So it's been a long time in the process, and then would have probably come out sooner had things not been the way they were last year. But it ended up working out well with being able to prepare some music videos and get other sorts of media going instead of just put it out as soon as it was done being mixed. So where we are now is we are getting back into playing live. We've had one show that was sort of a, let's see what happens. Is anybody going to go to shows anymore? And it was a pretty great success, I would say. And now we have our album release show coming up tomorrow. The day after the album comes out, which is nice, and we're pretty hopeful that'll also go pretty well. Things in Chicago anyway with live shows seem to be going well, or well enough as anyone can expect. And the album's out today, but we got some more stuff coming. We got another music video coming out in the near future, in maybe about a week from now, I think. So stay tuned for that. I think that's, we have one video out now for Pendulum, which is a super, super interesting video made by very creative people. And we have another one coming out that's like another end of the spectrum, I would say, visually and like mood wise. So that'll be great. And, we're kind of going to see how it goes from there. Like Jesse mentioned earlier, we really did want to press vinyl, and after, many discussions and budgetary things, and it hasn't happened yet. We would like it to happen. There's a lot of things going on with vinyl right now for everybody. We're not special in the how can we get this thing made in the field. So things are still, we hope this keeps going for a while after this release. And we've got some other stuff recorded as well that's, not of this album, but is of us. And that'll also be interesting.
We also did some cover songs, a handful of cover songs.
Really? Do you mind sharing what they are, or do they have to be a surprise?
It's up to you guys. I don't know.
Well, I would maybe if I can be so take the point on this just for a second. Like, I don't think we would right now say all the ones that we've done, but we are playing a cover tomorrow night. And I think it's a funny choice, but it's a song that I've wanted to cover for a really long time. And it just sort of this weird serendipity that this is the band that gets to do it. So it's a Police cover.
Oh, wow.
And should I just say it? It's
Invisible Sun. Yes! That's my favorite Police song. For real. Like, Alan, you and I are connected, man. We're connected. Quinn,
my brother from another mother. Yeah, it's not going on here, right? Yeah.
It's the Seattle thing, I think. Yeah.
It probably is. But it was one of the ones we decided on first, and we just said, let's do some covers. So let's keep busy. Let's go in the studio. Let's make some stuff. So in part, to Jesse's point and to Quinn's point, is if we get the chance to put this on vinyl, it's going to have to be a double record anyways. So maybe we'll add 5 covers to the record. It's a double record. But yeah, Invisible Sun is one of them. And then it branches out in diversity from there. So anybody's guess, we're not going to probably reveal all that at this point.
Wow. Yeah, there's no current pop hits on there as Starless versions, but there are some deep cuts, I would say, that have been, I call them interpretations, not covers, because they don't really sound like, the original.
Interesting. I know I have no say in your band. I get it. I have 0 say. But just for me, I would love it if you guys covered Stripped by Depeche Mode. Because that's a deep cut, and boy, is that a dark, dark song.
Which I love me some Depeche.
Yeah, me too.
We're not opposed to the idea.
Okay. Let me say something too quickly about if I may, let me jump in really quick about the video thing too. I just wanted to tell you this. This isn't a question, but when I started listening to the album the past couple of days, I was so stoked about it. I have 3 children, and I should say I have 6 children, but I have 3 children that are still at home, and we listen to music every night. And so that first night when I heard the record, I came in, sat in my living room, turned on the stereo, brought up YouTube on the TV, and I played the video for Pendulum, right? My daughter sat there with me, just absolutely loved it. Last night, right when we were getting ready for bed, I couldn't find the video for some reason on television, and so I ended up bringing up the new, it's like a new posting of the entire record. I don't know if you guys did it or the label did it or some kid did it. But the point is Pendulum was there. So I click on it, and my daughter's sitting there, and she says, "Oh, I remember this song from a couple days ago." She goes, "This is the song that has the kaleidoscope." And I thought that is so badass that she's connected those two things. So I wanted to say, congratulations. How does that make you feel when somebody remembers that?
It's remarkable.
Yeah, it's great. We have to give props. We have to give props to Katie Capuzza, who did the animation for that.
Yeah, so cool, so cool.
How old is your daughter? That
she's 10.
Okay, yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, she's into everything from ABBA to like Ghost Iris. She listens to deathcore stuff. I play her Isan. We listen to we're a deep family.
That's great.
Lots of crazy stuff. Low Fang, you name it, man. We're out there.
Well, it's nice to know she's paying attention.
She is paying attention. Yeah. A couple of last questions for you. Today, September 10th. This is the actual release day, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Of the album. Yes. So when people hear this, hopefully in a few days, go buy the record. But I just wanted to give you guys a big congratulations, and I hope that others will hear what I hear and agree that Hope Is Leaving You is as close to perfect a 9.6 as you can get. So congratulations to you guys. It's really an incredible work. It's truly, truly awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
And thanks for asking us to do this. It's great, to see you, to talk to you, to have a conversation about the record that is outside of our band space and the sort of familiarity. It's nice to talk to someone out in the world about something I think we're all really proud of, but we're really excited about the record. And
you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's always hard. It's always hard when, in my situation, for example, I'm spending all this time sort of fawning. It's not necessarily questions, right? But I love it so much, and it's such a beautiful thing. And if I could ask a last question before I let you go, when people are listening to the album, what's their feedback? Is it all the same? Is it like me? Are people losing their minds, or are they judging you? Have you had some harsh responses to this, or has it been just one big pleasure party?
I mean, it seems like these days, saying negative things about people's art is just kind of frowned upon in general. I don't
Right.
see that a lot, as much as I used to, or as much as I feel like I used to. So I think it's, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Sort of situation, usually.
Yeah. I think the criticism thing is that the criticism train, so to speak, has kind of left the building, right? Because most critics, if the ones that are left at least, they're online and they don't necessarily have the following that they did when print media was the only way to get it, right?
Yeah.
So that seems to be part of it.
Throw something in on that. Like, to be perfectly honest, not many people have heard the record that we really know.
There's also that, yeah.
It's going to be, I think, there's so much to listen to. We deliberately avoided Bandcamp Friday with the release, all these things, like just trying to maximize the exposure.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be a while before people listen to the record. There's just lots of stuff coming out. But that being said, like, I think a friend of John's in particular, like we gradually played it to close friends, right? And the one thinking of John's friends in particular that got to listen to it. And since they've heard us, but seen us live and heard us throughout the progress or throughout the growth of the band, I think that not only, I mean, they're honest people, they're also loving people.
Yeah.
So they shared, I think, this heartfelt reaction to that, like that they really, really liked it. And then I think it's not just that they're the friends, is they've seen this happen and they're going to be honest. If they see growth and a bond emerge and like art emerge from another band that they're friends with, that they're going to be honest about it. And like I said, so I think they're just being they're showing us care, but they're the ones that have heard it and they've been really supportive and they liked it. Mm-hmm. So that's the only reactions I think I've gotten so far, is just been close people. So we just haven't had much exposure yet. We just, not many people for the record.
Yeah, I think that's one reason why we're excited for it to be out in the world to everybody now, because, we know how we feel about it. We've been living with it for a while, and a few close people have shared with us, but, en masse, so here comes someone like you who really got it and, is expressing that. And, we hope more people might feel the same way, or at least get to hear it and, maybe they don't care at all. But, I'd just like, people to hear it and let us know.
Well, I've played it for 6 people, and all 6 of them have said, basically, I mean, I'm trying not to swear. I'm trying to be bad. I heard Jon even stop himself earlier. He's like, but they were, knocked their socks off. They were just like, holy shit, this is really special. And I think the hardest part about releasing something like this that is seemingly epic is, how do you support it, right? I mean, not just Bandcamp, not just online promo, but can you tour behind it? Do you want to tour behind it, right? All those things are very difficult, especially because I don't know one musician that actually doesn't want to get their material out on the road, but the costs, right? Everything is so prohibitive. And especially when you're dealing with COVID, almost impossible, because you have to front all this money, whether you're, renting a van or flying somewhere or whatever, or setting up this entire tour. And then, COVID's going to pull the plug for you. That has to be tough to support it.
I think we're at this point just trying to be thankful that we can make, that we could make something like this,
right.
And enjoying, the process itself and the music and taking pleasure in whatever it is, whatever opportunities come our way.
Yeah. If I could, before I let you go, I think it has to be difficult to have recorded an album 2 years ago and just now releasing it, because to me, fortunately, it feels fresh, it feels modern, it feels very forward thinking. But it has to be strange to be releasing something that you've been sitting on so long that you maybe are even a little tired of. Is that true in your situation? Are you just like, oh, we got to get past this so we can get to the next thing? Or are you actually pleased
answering this?
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, I think it's almost better that we waited, because when we finally finished the very meticulously, very meticulous and very very laborious mixing process, I certainly was done with it. I didn't want to ever hear it again. And so if we had released it, right then, I would have been totally, just over it. But being able to sit on it for a time and come back to it, it kind of refreshed it for me personally. And I'm actually enjoying it more now than I think if we would have released it when we finished it.
Man, that's awesome.
I'm still very excited about it.
Good.
I was telling these guys during practice recently that I get goosebumps playing two particular songs every time.
Which two?
Citizen and Forest.
Awesome. Yeah, because you'd mentioned Forest earlier, so you
one of my
clearly in
favorites.
love with that piece. Yeah. How about you, Quinn?
I'm a little more in Jesse's camp. I don't think the excitement really dropped. I was in my head. I'm glad we had the space. But I've just sort of had this low burn the whole time, listening to it myself, going, imagining what is it gonna, how are other people gonna react when they hear this? Hearing certain parts, like you said in Devils, when that hits, and I'm like, man, when someone hears this come up for the first time, I hope they're just gonna be like, whoa.
And Rob is kind of proof of that, I think.
I lost my mind. Like I was just, I mean. Look, I hear 100 new records a month. Easy. I get so much stuff, and I only pick 3 to 4. And I mean, I don't mean this like I'm so badass. Look at me go. But I mean, it just blew my fucking mind. It blew my mind. I'm telling you, I'm sorry for interrupting you guys on this, but I have to say it one more time. There's something about it. I mean, if you could see, you probably can't, but if you could see the goosebumps, there's something that's visceral for me. It's affected me, and it's almost like how like in I'm gonna get weird for you a second, but you know how like when people say like, oh, you believe in something, right? Like a church thing or whatever, you just believe in something and you can't wait to talk about it, and all you do is talk about it. You're like, no, you got to listen to this, you got to hear this, you got to believe this, you got to fall in love with this, you got to see what I see. Right? And I'm going to make you. That's how this feels. I feel like I'm preaching the gospel of Starless, and I love it.
That's awesome.
Rob the Apostle.
Yeah. And I wore my favorite shirt. I've never worn this shirt for real. This is how nerdy I am. I never wear this shirt because it's out of print. It's a fortune. And I'm going to show it to you right now. The listeners are going to have to deal with it. Domo Nation.
That's awesome.
It's a killer shirt. I've had this 20 years. I've worn it twice.
It looks pretty new.
It doesn't even fit me. Like if I don't even want to give you a profile because I'm like, I've got boobs, you know what I mean? It's really bad. But I love this so much, and I know, this my interview style, if you will, is a little wacky. I'm very much a zealot, but I just love what you guys have created, and I'm so humbled that you took the time to come here today. So thank you so much. And if I could just end one more way, is just to say, it's September 10th. Please buy this new record. Hope is Leaving You is really special, and Starless is awesome, and I hope you tour somehow, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you
so much.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
and swing. This burning bridge is always swaying. Jump before